Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your attendance at this event. I hope you're excited about this track. We are in the technical track, and the first 4 sessions will be all about building the tech stack. So starting us off will be Phil Nash, who is a principal developer evangelist at Twilio. Phil is a developer evangelist and a Google developer expert, and we just realized we live very close to each other here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. Phil loves working with Ruby or JavaScript to build web applications and tools in his role to help developers. Away from the keyboard, Phil listens to ska punk, enjoys discovering new beers, and runs the occasional half marathon. So Phil, over to you. Kick us off.
Thanks very much, Akil. I forget what I put in that bio every now and again, and I get reminded in an introduction like this. And yes, Scarpunk is very good. I like developing with Ruby. Ruby is my dog as well, not named for the language, but if you hear some barking in the background, she's just got a bit vocal this morning. So we might get some of that. Anyway, thanks very much. Let's get on and talk about the communications toolkit that every developer needs. First up, yes, my name's Phil Nash. I'm a developer evangelist at Twilio. If you want to catch me online at any point, ask me questions about either this talk or anything to do with Twilio at all, you can always find me at Phil Nash on Twitter or any of the social places, and or hit me up with an email, philnash@twilio.com. I would absolutely love to hear from you. Love to hear what you're building. Love to hear what you're doing with APIs. But I work at Twilio. Twilio is a communications platform. That is, we have a whole bunch of APIs available for you to do things like send and receive text messages or emails, make and receive phone calls, create video chats, basically anything to do with communications online that you could do with your users, with your customers, or even between people on your platform. Whatever you're doing, we have an API that's going to make that easier. And today I do want to talk just a little bit about trends in communications first. I think we've had a very interesting kind of start to API days. If you were watching the kind of keynotes and talking about how to secure applications and make sure that's right, and then how to drive digital transformation, I think that was a really interesting one, because communication trends are very much part of that digital transformation, whether you agree that the phrase digital transformation exists or not. So Twilio actually just, I think it was last week, released our State of Customer Engagement report for 2022. You can get that report at SOCER, I don't know how to pronounce that, socer.twilio.com. Go grab that report. I'm going to talk about a couple of bits from it today. But this State of Customer Engagement report is kind of our yearly look into what businesses around the world are doing in terms of customer engagement and how they engage with their customers digitally, physically, or whatever. And some of the things that come out of this are super important, I think, to all businesses, and particularly those building their applications and trying to transform these days. I see one of the biggest takeaways is simply that digital engagement works. Companies and businesses are building more and more ways to engage with customers digitally, whether that be via emails or text messages or even phone calls or face-to-face video, even like we're doing now. And you'll hear a bit more about that later. Digital engagement works. We have the proof behind it. And so the State of Customer Engagement report surveyed almost 3,500 different businesses and 4,500 different consumers asking about this kind of stuff. And on the business side, like revenue impact from investments in digital engagement increased revenue by 70% on average, which I think is absolutely incredible. And then 7% of companies managed to triple their revenue based on the investment they made in digital engagement and engaging with their customers. Now, that kind of thing is incredible, but that doesn't tell the whole story, because what it comes down to is actually personalization in that business, in that engagement with customers could just be better. And 98% of companies actually said like personalization increases their customer engagement. And 83% of customers agreed with that. Like personalization is engagement. But it goes beyond just that kind of making sure that you correctly use your customer's first name in that email that you send to them, because it's lacking. So 75% of companies said that they provided good or excellent personalized experiences. And whilst I absolutely feel for the 25% that didn't necessarily believe they provided those good or excellent experiences, at least 3/4 of them did. But only 48% of customers say that they receive good or excellent personalized experiences on the other side of things. So there's a bit of a mismatch there. That personalization is lacking. Now, I actually think this is actually improving over time. And if you go and look back to state of customer engagement reports from Twilio from 2-3 years back, you'll find that that kind of difference is actually it's improving. Like the customers that believe that the personalized experiences are coming, or that they are receiving personalized experiences, is improving. So that's kind of exciting, but still there is this mismatch and this misbalance with it. And so digital engagement overall is critical to this. Like it's the being able to engage with and reach out to your customers at the right time with the right engagement, with the right personalization, is absolutely critical to building and improving business as we continue to go online and buy things, be online, do all these things online. Like we've seen this over the last couple of years with the pandemic, where everything has been online, and we're not going back from that. And so digital engagement is absolutely critical to business. So the question then is, what is in your toolkit? How are you able to reach out to customers and give them that personalized and direct experience with your business that you can? Now, obviously, obviously at Twilio, we're at APIdays, and so communications and that customer engagement is absolutely an API level thing, because what you need to do is build the customer engagement and the communication that your business needs. You don't need to worry about kind of the underlying mechanisms with which you send an API request. No, sorry, you can worry about sending an API request. You don't need to worry about how you send a text message, how you make a phone call, how you connect to those networks. What you need to do is worry about the communication itself. And so that's where kind of Twilio comes into help, where we help you power those communications with those APIs. And just the power of HTTP is in your hands in order to then power those communications. We just use HTTP and webhooks in order to make these things happen. API requests to a REST-based API, which is easily understandable and is predictable in order to make things happen on the platform, and webhooks as a way of receiving information from the platform, from the communications platform, and being able to respond to it. If I can give you an example of how like kind of webhooks and the Twilio platform work itself, is that if on the left hand side you see somebody sends a text message, for example, to a Twilio number, that message gets sent to Twilio. Twilio turns it into that HTTP request into a webhook that's then sent to your server to respond to. In the case of Twilio, you can respond with what we call TWIML, which is XML that tells Twilio what to do next with the call or with the message. So you respond back to Twilio, and that sends that response back to the customer. And I don't like necessarily just talking about this stuff. I'm much bigger fan of showing you this kind of thing in action. So I'm just going to run through a quick demo to see how this works and how you can hook this into your own application. So I'm going to go to the demo. I grabbed myself a phone number in my Twilio account earlier, and you can do this yourself if you want to. It's free to sign up for a Twilio account. You can go check this out and get yourself a number and play around with this kind of stuff yourself. So I got myself a number, and this is just that config page for the number. And you can see I can either do voice and not fax anymore. I don't know why that's still there. and messaging. And so I'm going to play with messaging right now. And I initially set this up to send a webhook to this URL. This is philnash.ngrok.io/messages. Now, if you know ngrok, it's a tool that allows you to tunnel a public address through to your local machine so that you can interact with webhooks easily whilst developing on your own machine. And that's what I've got here. So I'm going to open that application. That's the application that is behind that URL right now, although there isn't anything behind that that route /messages. So I'm just going to build that for you right now. Twilio is going to make a post request. It says that right there. That's going to include all the information about the message, as I said, in that request, and we can then respond to it. Like I said, we will respond with, it needs to be XML, right? So I'm going to just set the content type to XML. Otherwise, Twilio doesn't like to understand it, and that's fine. It's what it's expecting. It wants XML. And then we can send a response. And I'm going to send the response here, just using a string. Now, there are better ways of doing this, but I'm just going to use a string for it because it's not a very complicated XML response in this particular case. So to respond to something like an incoming message, we return all the results within response tags like this. And then because it's a message, we can respond with a message. So we can say something like, welcome to API Days, Apidays Singapore. Have a great conference. I'm a big fan of exclamation points, as you can see. But there we go. We've sent that. We respond with this message and in XML, and that's all that endpoint kind of needs to do. Now, this application is already running, and that restarted when I saved it. And so what I should be able to do is I'm going to grab my phone, but actually you can see the phone number there. If you want to get involved, with this, you can send a message as well. That is an Australian number. I'm going to send a quick message to it just to make sure it's working and show you all that it is in fact right. And you should be able to see that happening on the right-hand side of my phone that's on screen. But if you want to send a message to it, do so using the number that's on the screen there. I'm just going to send my favorite emoji in, which is, there we go. Doesn't matter what I'm sending. That's been sent. I should be receiving my response back, and there it is. It's behind the number there, but I get a response back saying, welcome to API Days, have a great conference. So that is that. What I can do is, if you want to take part in this, I'll drop drop the number into the chat as well. You can respond, you can send messages to that if you want to take a part. Of course, I've said that. The number appeared in chat probably before I said that because times. Anyway, but that's not all. So we've done receiving messages there, but Twilio has an API as well, and the REST API, which makes things happen as well. And so in this side of things, I'm just going to just show you how that API works briefly as well. So right here, I'm using JavaScript here. We said at the start, I'm a JavaScript developer. And this is using our JavaScript library to require in a client and authenticate that with the API. And then I can just use that API to list the messages that were sent to my Twilio number. And when we do that, when we get hold of those messages, then we can use them. We can use them to, say, make a call back, right? This is where we can create an outbound API request that is going to create an outbound call, because I can take those messages that you sent and use the number that was in them. So I can, for each of the messages, we'll take a message and use that client again to create a call from, again, the Twilio number to the message from, that's the number that the message was sent from, and we'll send a URL. And this is where we get back into our webhooks again. And so I'm just going to send philnash.ngrok.io/voice. And that will, when I run this code, trigger calls, and then when the call connects, make a request to that voice endpoint. I'm just going to do one more thing, which is log the call SID. Just helps me know it was working. So we don't have a voice endpoint on here just yet. We do have a messages one, so I'm going to copy the messages one because it's mostly the same. We have a voice endpoint now. We still have our response, but here we can do other things like we can say messages or gather input using either speech input or by detecting GTMF tones. That's pressing the number pad on the phone. We can do things like record voicemails, or we can dial onto other people, even connecting people into, say, something like a conference. We're at a conference right now, but I mean different ones. But for right now, I'm just going to use one of my favorite ones, which is play, which allows you to play a URL. If you've got an MP3 at the end of that URL, we can play it. And I'm going to do so using this URL, phil.twill.io/assets/song.mp3. And oops, end that play. Nice, simple one, just playing a message using an MP3 file. And so if I just give myself another terminal at the bottom here, I can run my make calls script here. And if you did send a text message in, then grab your phone because it might well ring in a second. We'll see if anybody did. At least one other person. Hurrah! And if I get my phone back up on the screen, we can see it is now ringing. And if I accept that, then yes, it's a favorite thing of mine to do to to connect you to my man Rick Astley. But that's it, right? So what we've seen here is we have this ability to receive incoming calls, incoming messages, or make calls and write the code to respond to them. Now, this has been inside a very simple application. This has been inside an application that has no connection to anything else. But when you are writing this code and building this into your own applications, then this is where you can connect to the data about your users, what they've been doing, what they have done on your platform, and personalize that response and make it. When you're building communications as part of your application, that personalization kind of becomes a lot easier just because you have all the data there available to you. Now I'm going to run out of time if I don't continue talking. I do want to say before I close up, there are a couple of workshops that Twilio are running at API Days. They're on tomorrow morning, I think, Singapore time, and I highly recommend you check them out because we can go from very simple API kind of stuff here to upgrading your CRM to a customer engagement platform. That's my colleague Christian, who is going to talk about taking your CRM, your actual user data, and using that to engage your customers properly using these APIs. So that's going to be a great workshop. And then there are other alternative kind of ways we can be engaging with our customers as well. I mentioned video very briefly earlier. I think video is absolutely amazing. Like right now we have this broadcast going out over Hopin. You're inside of this platform. And this is for a conference, and we have conference thing with chat and stuff going on. But if you want to build your own kind of live video platform, it's an incredible way of doing e-commerce these days, allowing you to interact live with your users via video, via people talking to them. Then I recommend hitting up the workshop with my colleague Sarah tomorrow, building live streaming with Twilio Live. It will allow you to build an entirely customized version of a live streaming platform that you can use to interact and engage with your customers. Absolutely incredible. So I would recommend also, grab that State of Customer Engagement report. It's new. It's been out for about a week, and it's full of kind of insights and further things that you need to know as you're building customer engagement throughout the year. throughout this year, throughout your digital transformations, whether you agree if that exists or not. So go to socer.twilio.com for that. And so I said it earlier, digital engagement is critical. It's absolutely, it's massive. It allows you to increase revenue based on that investment, as we've seen from the report. When we have APIs for communications, we can embed that directly into your applications, and that allows you to use everything that you know about your users in order to interact and engage with them. And so finally, all I want to say is just it's up to you now to take those APIs, build the communications that work for your business and for your customers. I think that's my time. So that is me. Thank you very much. My name is Phil Nash. As I said, I'm a developer evangelist at Twilio. Grab me at philnash@twilio.com or Phil Nash everywhere else online. Enjoy the rest of API Days, and thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, Phil. That was very good. Thanks for kicking us off. I think you've set a pretty high bar for the rest of the gang coming up after you. There is one question on the chat. I'm going to save that for the end because it's a fun one. But I had one other question for you, which is, look, I've been following Twilio since 2010, somewhere thereabouts, right? I think a couple of years after it started. And I've always heard and known Twilio as a leader in the space for in the API space, right? So setting up developer portals, API first for all things of that kind, right? It's really well known. Given that there's going to be, I suspect, a number of engineers or engineering leaders in this audience, what would you want them to know as they're setting up their own API portals, right? Internal or external and so forth.
Oh, wow, that is an interesting one. When you're setting up things for API portals, it is also it's super important again to just consider and understand what your customer wants in this particular case. If your customer is just a consumer of the API, then keeping that in mind all the time is absolutely important. We certainly found that when we were setting up that having documentation easily available at any time and answering the right questions at the right time is super important to that. And that is why you'll find inside of the Twilio developer portal, there's a search which at the top not only takes you to different parts of the portal, but takes you to bits. It can take you to the documentation as well. Like when you're searching for a product, you may be looking just to navigate there or to find out more about it. I think that's really important. Search is absolutely underrated, I think, in these kind of portals. And then secondly, like just having your customers in this case want the API and they want to use code, and so having sort of code forward at any one point to make it easier for somebody to go from understanding what the API is to using it is also really important. And as developers, we're pretty bad at reading stuff, and we do just scroll to the code, and we found that over and over again. So to put the code first, it's important, and it works when it's there. Those are the things I think off the top of my head I'd consider for that. Get the code in front of people.
I feel very called out here because that's pretty much what I do as well.
Yeah, exactly. We all know it, and then you come to design your documentation and things like that, and you just start writing prose, and you're like, it's actually the code we want to get to. So yeah.
Fantastic. And one last question, which is, so you showed us, or you talked about REST APIs and so forth. Given given the proliferation of things like GraphQL and certainly gRPC and so forth, which are kind of the hot new toys, if you will, are there plans for Twilio to open up different types of APIs?
Oh, that's a good question, I certainly myself have no news on that. I think it's really interesting though. And as you said earlier, like Twilio kind of led the idea of API and developer-led products back from 14 years ago, and did so with REST APIs. but I actually think that REST does a pretty good job of explaining and the kind of resources that Twilio as an API itself has. When you're creating a call, there isn't a whole spidering graph of things that you need to actually accomplish with that call that GraphQL can necessarily make available. There is more to it when it comes to kind of getting information about that call and recordings and other bits that go off. So I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it was being considered internally, but I've certainly got nothing to say myself. I don't know.
Right. We'll wait to see what happens. Phil, thank you so much for your time and for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day.